Dun 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 da da da. Sharks. They they swim and eat and swim some more and eat some more. I swear sharks do. And despite their intimidating appearance and the fact that they are definitely capable of rending you asunder, the truth is, you are very, very, very unlikely to ever be attacked by these creatures. Sharks don't really see people as food, and most attacks, quote unquote, are less attacks and more mistaken identity. More, oh, I am so sorry. I did not realize you were not a fish or seal. My bad. Oh, I see you are bleeding a lot. Also, my bad. But yeah, sharks generally won't bother you as long as you don't bother them, and they're a commonly misunderstood creature on this planet because of this. After all, we, as humans, generally see something that can hurt us as a threat, but we often forget that just because it can hurt us doesn't mean it will, and most sharks won't. They won't bother us at all. They're more interested in fish. They prefer seafood. We don't taste good. We're not. We're too gamey for them, if you will. but but there was at least one shark all the way back in 1916, over 100 years ago, that appeared to develop somewhat of a taste for human flesh. The Jersey Shore shark attacks of 1916 stand out because they are a chain of multiple shark attacks that are believed to be the result of the same animal. The only major event that was worse than this in terms of shark attacks was the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, which I've talked about before. But in that instance, it was a whole bunch of people stuck in the middle of the Pacific being swarmed by a whole bunch of sharks who were probably really confused as to what all these things were and were doing a bunch of exploratory bites. And the thing about exploratory bites is that they're still bites, and yeah, it wasn't. It was bad. It was really, really bad for everybody involved. But this was different. This was one shark, seemingly intentionally going after people. We're still not sure quite why this animal did this. We're not even sure what kind of shark it was, but it did happen between the days of July 1st and July 12th of 1916. A total of 5 individuals would be attacked, 4 of whom would die of their injuries. The first attack occurred on Saturday, July 1st, at a location called Beach Haven. Beach Haven is a borough that's situated on the Jersey Shore in southern Ocean County. It's a nice place to be if you want to go to the beach, you know. And many people did, cause that summer was a particularly, well, difficult one for people in general. There was a polio epidemic, for one, which people were trying to avoid, because no, and there was a heat wave going on at the time, so they wanted to go to the beach to cool off. Plus, this was also right in the middle of World War I, which the United States wasn't directly involved in yet, but it was still another stressor on the general populace. A nice relaxing day at the beach seemed like a good idea, but it turned out it wasn't. I really shouldn't poke too much fun or make too many jokes, because people did die horribly, brutally, and the first victim was one Charles Epting Vincent, who was 23 years old and from Philadelphia. He was on vacation at the Ingleside Hotel alongside his family. Charles decided to take a quick swim with a dog that was playing on the beach, a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, who he had made friends with. But almost as soon as he entered the water, something was wrong. He began shouting, panicking, but no one moved to help him because at the time, the other people at the beach thought he was just calling to the dog. But no, that's not what he was yelling about. He was yelling because there was a shark biting his legs. Now, personally, to me, there is a great deal of difference between calling a dog and screaming that your legs are being bitten off. These two things are not even remotely related, and one is far more severe, but either way, no one really panicked at first. Eventually, a lifeguard named Alexander Ott did come to Charles's aid, alongside another bystander, Sheridan Taylor. They dragged Charles onto the beach, but found that his left thigh was missing a lot of pieces that were necessary for life. He would wind up bleeding to death and be the first fatality of this terrible incident. Despite this attack, though, the beaches were not closed.
We have to close the beaches.
The authorities at the time didn't feel that this was a serious issue to address because shark attacks were so rare.
We have to serve them up a smorgasbord.
We never had that kind of trouble in these waters.
And they even tried to downplay the idea that this was even a shark at all.
Well, I think possibly, yes, a boating
That's not what you told me over the phone.
I was wrong.
After all, it's a big ocean. That could have been anything that ripped the flesh from this guy's thigh. I mean, there's many other animals that could have done that. To be fair, there are a few other animals that could have done this, so it wasn't necessarily a guarantee it was a shark, and one attack doesn't close a whole beach. However, during the time between this attack and the following attack, sea captains reported that they were spotting quite a number of very large sharks swimming off the coast. These, again, didn't raise any concerns until July 6. The victim in this instance was named Charles Bruder. He was 27 years old, and a Swiss bell captain who worked at the Essex and Sussex Hotel. He was swimming 130 yards offshore when he was attacked. This time the shark bit into his abdomen and completely severed his legs. The attack turned the ocean red, quite literally, and a woman would notify two lifeguards about the screens, but she thought a canoe with a red hull had capsized and was floating at the water's surface. She didn't realize it was blood. That's how red it was. The lifeguards were named Chris Anderson and George White. They would go out to Bruder in a lifeboat rather than swim, and quickly realized that he had in fact been mauled by a shark. They pulled him from the water, but there was very little they could do, and he would also bleed to death. In the aftermath of this particular attack, both guests and workers at the Essex and Sussex Hotel would raise money to send back to Bruder's mother, who lived in Switzerland. But now things were getting very scary. This was the second attack in less than a week, and people were starting to think, maybe we are dealing with something a little bit serious. While the reaction to the first attack had been largely downplayed, the second attack caused the media to spur into a frenzy, claiming that there was a man-eater out there, a crazy, insatiable beast hungering for delicious flesh. Your delicious flesh! It's coming. Run! Run, coward, but there's no escape! It's the media. I don't know what you expected. By July 8th, a press conference was called with scientists as panelists, all of whom insisted that a third run-in with a shark in such a short amount of time was very unlikely. Because, well, frankly, two in such a short amount of time was unprecedented. This was highly unusual, and they're right. This sort of thing was ridiculous. Like, there was basically no documented evidence of anything like this happening this frequently up until that point. They even admitted that they were surprised that the sharks bit anyone at all. But one of the scientists, John Treadwell Nichols, who was the only one who was an ichthyologist, a branch of zoology devoted to the study of fish, specifically, decided to err on caution and tell swimmers to stay close to shore and take advantage of the netted bathing areas installed at public beaches. He likely suspected that what they were dealing with was a rogue. A rogue animal of any kind, a shark in this case, obviously, is an animal that doesn't necessarily follow the rules. Is really the best way to put it. Generally speaking, we as humans think we have a pretty good understanding of animals we study. They have certain habits and certain instincts and do certain things in certain situations, but there's always outliers, and always individuals. Doubtlessly many of you have owned pets, and you'll likely be the first to say that each of your pets had distinctive personalities. I myself have owned dogs and cats, and each one was a little bit different from each other. Sure, they had similar habits, but they are individuals, just like we are. The idea of a rogue is that there's an animal that is so individualistic that they simply do whatever the heck they want, well outside the confines of what their species would generally do. This shark seems to be that case. This animal was doing things that were not normal, and that theory was basically proven on July 12th. the worst day of the attacks. Because not one, not two, but 3 different people were attacked on that same day. In the same place, Matawan Creek, a location near the town of Keyport. Now you're probably already confused. A creek? Isn't that freshwater? I thought sharks were saltwater. Well, the creek is weird, for a few reasons. It's actually a tidal inlet, so it can have a lot of salt in it, in that general vicinity. It's not necessarily a guarantee that it's completely fresh, meaning a saltwater shark could swim in there if they wanted to, and there is at least one species of shark that can definitely do it, but more on that later. But in that particular area, no one was really following any safety protocols because, frankly, it was thought that a shark would not even be there at all. It was so unusual. But a local sea captain, Thomas Cottrell, did report that he spotted an 8-foot-long shark in the creek. But his claim wasn't taken seriously. No one thought that it was an actual shark. Like, come on, man. A shark in the creek? Don't be silly. Anyway, so around 2 p.m., an 11-year-old boy was mauled. Yeah, it's getting dark real quick, I know. As if it already wasn't dark. The kid's name was Lester Stillwell, and he was playing in the creek with his friends. According to those friends, they were at a place called Wyckoff Dock when they observed what they thought was just an old log floating through the creek. But then a dorsal fin appeared, and they realized it was a shark. Before Stillwell got out, the shark dragged him under the water. The other boys, not really sure of what the heck to do about this, ran to town to get help, and they returned with a group of men. Those men included Watson Stanley Fisher, a local businessman who was 24 years old, and he dove in with the others to try to find Stillwell. They, at this point, did not think that the shark claim was real, though. They thought he had suffered some kind of seizure or something, and that the other kids were just panicked. They did find Stillwell's remains and began dragging him to shore, but as they did so, Fisher was also bitten by the shark, in full view of the townspeople who had come to see what was going on. They lost Stillwell's body, and Fisher's right thigh was very, very badly injured. He would later bleed to death at the hospital at 5:30 p.m. Stillwell's remains were recovered just 150 feet upstream later on July 14th. But the shark wasn't done on the 12th. Oh no, there was one more victim, Joseph Dunn, who was 14 years old. Just 30 minutes after the attacks on Stillwell and Fisher, he was also attacked, but Dunn would be the exception. He lived. His left leg was horrifically injured, but he was rescued by his brother and friend who were with him, who literally got into a tug of war with the shark. Dunn would be taken to St. Peter's University Hospital, where it would take him some time to recover. He wouldn't be released till September, but he did survive. And naturally, after all this, the media was like, yo, what the heck was that? Everyone was freaking out. Like, there was clearly something going on here. This wasn't just an isolated incident, or even 2 isolated incidents. There was a shark eating people, or trying very hard to. Many others claimed to have encounters with the Jersey man-eater, as the shark would be called, and local New Jersey governments did start taking steps to protect beachgoers and the economy.
Amity is a summer town. We need summer dollars.
They were worried about the economy, because of course they were. They had to do something about this, okay? They just had to. As a result, the 4th Avenue beach at Asbury Park was enclosed with a steel wire mesh fence, and even patrolled by armed motorboats. They were not playing. As for Matawan Creek, well, it was also enclosed with nets, and people even detonated dynamite in an attempt to catch and kill the evil shark, because people are crazy, okay? It's just dump explosives into the water. We'll get it eventually! Well, actually, no, they would not. No sharks were captured or killed in Matawan Creek, but other sharks were captured and killed. Resort communities along the Jersey Shore petitioned the federal government to aid local efforts to protect the beaches and to hunt sharks. The House of Representatives would appropriate $5,000, over $140,000 in today's money, for eradicating the New Jersey shark threat. President Woodrow Wilson would even schedule a meeting with his cabinet to discuss these attacks. It was suggested by Treasury Secretary William Gibbs McAdoo that they could mobilize the Coast Guard to protect sunbathers, which is a bit of an overreaction. It's just one shark, guys. What are we're going to war against this singular shark. We're gonna get it, America. Well, things never went quite that far, although shark hunts, somewhat organized ones, did take place off the coasts of New Jersey and New York. The reason for New York is that the shark appeared to be moving north, so it was thought that wherever it went, it would have been further up the coast, hence New York. New Jersey's governor, James Fairman Fielder, and other local municipalities even offered bounties to individuals that were hunting sharks. As a result, hundreds of sharks were captured on the East Coast, the vast majority of them never even considering attacking a person, and were just existing, as sharks normally do. While the loss of human life here is tragic, the sharks definitely lost way more individual members, because there was just no organization when it came to looking for the right shark. I mean, the hunters didn't even know what shark they were looking for. We still don't know what shark this was, or what species it was. There are many theories that float between a sand tiger shark, a blue shark, a sandbar shark, but the two that are cited most are a great white and a bull shark. The great white should be obvious. It's one of the most famous types of shark, and there was one great white that was caught, 7.5 footer, on July 14th by Michael Schleicher. Schleicher claimed this shark nearly sank his boat before he managed to kill it with a broken oar, and when the shark's belly was opened, they did discover human remains. So, we got him, right? This is the shark. Well, not necessarily. Just because there was human remains in the shark's belly doesn't necessarily mean that this is the shark. There wasn't a lot of human remains, indicating that the animal probably ate those bits of human that were left behind from the actual attack and not actually doing the attack itself. It was a young great white as well, and it seemed unlikely that this animal would have been able to get into the creek. True, that creek did have some salt, but great whites usually don't attack near the coast, especially in shallower water. But a bull shark, on the other hand, absolutely would do that. Bull sharks like the shallow waters, and bull sharks can go into fresh water. They have that ability to do this, and they are known to be somewhat aggressive. It's been suggested that the animal might have been a bull shark, not a white, though it's hard to say if the offending shark was ever caught in any way. There were no more attacks, true, so possibly, but it also may have just gone out in the ocean and never returned to shore. Some offered other theories, with at least one individual, Barrett P. Smith, in a letter to the New York Times, insisting that many people thought that the attack was actually a sea turtle. Yeah, a sea turtle. Okay. Yeah, Crush over here. You know, I know he seems super chill and relaxed and friendly. No. He will rend your flesh. That was one of the more ridiculous theories. And many also blamed World War I and the influence of German U-boats, as well as sunken boats in the ocean, giving the animals a taste for human flesh. But there's no evidence that that was the case. The truth, at the end of the day, is that we are unlikely to know exactly what shark did all this. And most experts these days will tell you it was probably a bull shark, but again, we'll never know with 100% certainty. And believe it or not, some good kind of came out of the attacks. Not a lot, but some. I mean, yes, there was the shark hunts, and those were very bad. I don't think we should be going around doing that. But prior to this, there hadn't been a tremendous amount of research done on sharks. We knew what they were and that they could bite a human, but that it was highly unusual. But this made people question that. So more research was done. And it was still found that sharks would likely not attack a human. That still remained. But we also discovered a whole bunch of other things. So much research has been done between then and now, and we know so much more about these fascinating animals. Their habits, their behaviors, their instincts, their lifespans. A whole bunch of stuff that we probably wouldn't have known had, well, we not bothered to look into it. It also had a notable cultural impact as well. Not only were there plenty of cartoons about the whole thing put in newspapers at the time, But also in 1974, a writer named Peter Benchley published a book called Jaws. If you're not familiar with the book, you're probably familiar with the movie, as it was Spielberg's breakout hit and one of his best in my opinion. Though Peter Benchley would later go on to somewhat regret writing the book, and he would spend the rest of his life pushing for oceanic conservation and not encouraging people to actually hunt down sharks as villains. Because they aren't. Sharks usually won't bother you. 99.9999% of sharks are not going to bite you. They just won't do it unless you make them. But one rogue, one time, off the coast of New Jersey, in 1916, had to go and ruin everything for every other shark by being a big old jerk. But I stress, it was an unprecedented and ridiculous situation. Just as ridiculous as the game Maneater, where you play as a shark. Yes, really. You swim around eating people. It's great. I just talked about it over on my video game channel. You can check it out below. Yeah, I did segue into a video game about a man-eating shark. While I'm talking about an actual historical incident involving a man-eating shark. Fight me, okay? Fight me! Except not if you're a shark. I don't want to fight a shark. I feel like I'll lose that fight. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fun farewell.